Whether it's through movies, theater, books, television, or Spielberg, you've probably had some sort of experience with Peter Pan. Originally published in novel form in 1911 by J.M. Barrie, Peter Pan chronicles the adventures of Wendy Darling and her two brothers in Neverland, where they meet Captain Hook, the Lost Boys, Tiger Lily, Tinker Bell, and of course the illustrious Peter Pan, a mischievous boy who will never grow up. Naturally, the story has captivated young minds since its earliest days and has been retold and adapted countless times. When yet another live-action retelling of the story was announced, it was met with generally positive feedback. However, upon release, attitudes toward Joe Wright's Pan changed. This might be due to traditional issues such as shortcomings in the narrative or castings that don't live up to expectations, but it might also be due to the fact that Pan was never truly a Peter Pan adaptation. In his article, Beyond Fidelity, Robert Stamm writes, "The question of fidelity ignores the wider question. Fidelity to what? Is the filmmaker to be faithful to the plot in its every detail? That might mean a 30-hour version of War and Peace. Virtually all filmmakers condense the events of the novel being adapted, if only to conform to the norms of conventional theatrical release. Should one be faithful to the physical appearance of the characters? Perhaps so. But what if the actor who happens to fit the description of Nabokov's Humbert also happens to be a mediocre actor? Or is one to be faithful to the author's intentions? But what might they be? And how are they to be inferred? Authors are sometimes not even aware of their own deepest intentions. How then can filmmakers be faithful to them? And to what authorial instance is one to be faithful? To the biographical author? To the textual implied author? To the narrator? Or is the adapter filmmaker to be true to the style of a work? To its narrative point of view? Or to its artistic devices? Stamm asks, fidelity to what? In Pan's case, it certainly wasn't the source material. Pan is an origin story, something that has mostly been avoided, the main exception being Spielberg's Hook. This film, however, is somewhat of an outlier on many fronts because it features an adult Peter Pan and his children. Going back to Pan, the antagonist of the film is Blackbeard. Although Blackbeard was the inspiration behind Pan's greatest foe, it's Captain Hook that usually fills the role of antagonist, and he is usually portrayed by the same actor who plays Mr. Darling. But Wendy is absent in this incarnation, and instead of being enemies, Hook is Pan's ally. This film is not an adaptation of Barrie's Peter Pan, but it may still be an adaptation. This film pulls inspiration from multiple sources. Pan starts off in London. When Peter is abducted, his captors look less like pirates and more like Cirque du Soleil performers. It later becomes clear that they are in fact pirates, but if the film cut at the end of the abduction scene, it would be difficult to differentiate them from circus acrobats. When Peter arrives in Neverland, the pirate miners chant or sing. The film is adapting both the 90s grunge scene with Nirvana's Smells Like Teen Spirit and the 70s punk scene with the Ramones' Blitzkrieg Bop. The idea of comparing pirates to rock stars isn't new, and it really starts with The Curse of the Black Pearl. From there, it seems to have become commonplace. Pan not only fits this trend of comparing pirates with musicians, but pushes it further by making the comparison unavoidably clear. Continuing to pull from its smorgasbord of influences, Hook's Jolly Roger sports neon marquee-esque lettering. This, combined with the ginormous crocodile, brought to mind images of Louisiana, known for both alligators and Mardi Gras parties. This time, the pirate trend is pushed in a new direction. By alluding to a place known for its parties, the film brings a modern comparison to the assumptions about pirate life that audiences bring into the film. Historically, one of the biggest criticisms of Peter Pan, specifically the Disney incarnation, is the portrayal of Indians. Native Americans in Peter Pan are often depicted as stereotypical caricatures. Wright's Pan chooses to address this by foregoing the traditional thought of Indians as Native Americans and instead adapts Indians as the Aboriginal people of Neverland. In this way, the film hopes to avoid the pitfalls and criticisms of earlier adaptations. Pair this with the vast and varied landscapes and environments, and Neverland looks like an issue of National Geographic. To call Pan an adaptation of Peter Pan is grossly inaccurate. Like Tim Burton's Alice in Wonderland, it may be related, but is actually something new entirely. Pan resembles the mythos of Peter Pan in name alone, but that's okay. This is an origin story set before the events of Barrie's novel as well as the events of every other adaptation. When Stam asks fidelity to what, this film answers imagination. Like a dream, Pan pulls from multiple sources and combines them into its own new and unique vision of Neverland. Thank you so much for watching. I really wanted Pan to do better. I liked the design choices and I liked a lot of the castings. I thought it would have made a very interesting sequel where it actually tried to adapt Barrie's Peter Pan. Unfortunately, that doesn't look like it's going to be the case. That being said, I did think it was a good adaptation of the little boy's imagination. It's very similar to the types of things my son would come up with. On that note, I have to go take him to a Pokemon tournament. So, see you next time. Like, comment, subscribe.